Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast.
Today on the show, I interview Anna Roberts. Anna is a coach for expats in Paris. She's originally from Manchester in the UK, but moved to France over 10 years ago. We talk about some of the struggles that people have when they move to France and how are the ways that they can help themselves to feel better and more at home in the City of Light. So welcome to the show, Anna. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to talk to you today because you've been helping expats move to France, and I'm sure there's so many stories you can share about some of the obstacles of moving here, like so many people are dreaming about doing. But I want to go back to your origins about where you're from and what originally brought you to France.
Yeah, sure. So I am from Manchester in the north of England, and I originally moved to France over 10 years ago now. I'd always loved French when I was in school, and I loved my holidays when I came to Brittany. I spent many holidays in Brittany with my family, so I'd grown that kind of a natural affinity with France and French culture and the language. And so after my studies in the UK, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. Been thrown out there after university and just thrown into the adult world. And I just felt this kind of instinct to just go back to France, like reconnect with the love that I had of France. So that's what brought me here. And then Paris, I visited Paris on a few occasions, and I just wanted to have that experience of living here. So yeah, it's been over 8 years that I've been living in Paris, and yeah, great. It's not without its challenges though, for sure.
So talk a little bit about what it was like to move here full time. I mean, that was 8 years ago. What were some of the experiences you had?
Yeah. Well, originally I first moved to Paris, and I was on when I worked at the British Embassy, and I was on a few shorter term contracts. So I hadn't really prepared myself for moving to Paris for the long haul. I just saw myself as being here for 6 months, maybe a year, and then not really kind of taking it in. And then there was a point where I got given, the famous CDI, like the full-time contract, and I was like, okay, right, I'm in this now for the duration. So it kind of hit me when that happened because, you get questions like from your family and from friends back home, like kind of you feel guilty about leaving them. And there's like the questions of like, so when is it you're coming back? How long are you going to stay here for? And that's kind of difficult to navigate, especially when you move abroad by yourself, as well as all the administrative sides, trying to find an apartment, which is in Paris probably the number one challenge in terms of logistics of moving here, speaking the language, bank accounts, and things like that. So there's kind of like the emotional side of things, as well as the kind of nightmarish administrative aspects of living in Paris.
Yeah, it's all the things they don't tell you, right? Like no one knows how hard it is to find an apartment or open a bank account or make friends. And we all go through it. So I think we all kind of bond over those issues. And then talk a little bit about what inspired you to start your company. Tell us what inspired the name and why you decided to start something new.
Yeah. Well, the Expat Co is the name of my company. And this has been something that I've been kind of sitting on for a good few years now. I always felt this. I love psychology. I love philosophy. I love learning about those type of things. So going into coaching kind of feels like a natural. It just feels like the natural pathway for me. And I've had ideas of helping fellow expats because I struggled moving here. I struggled with the reality, kind of, as you mentioned, there's like building the friendship groups as well as all these other things that go into play when you move abroad. But there's also an extra element that I find that a lot of expats have, and I had it myself, of when you move to Paris, you have this kind of fantasy idea of what it's going to be like here. And then when you arrive, and of course, there's amazing aspects to living in Paris, but you don't see or you don't kind of anticipate the more negative aspects, which happens anywhere in the world, obviously, because it's real life. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And me too, I also struggled with it, with a kind of sense of disillusionment. So when I knew that I wanted to go into the coaching, I just felt like this could be really um, a good kind of like target audience to help out, because I know that there was no one there when I was going through my struggles. There was no one specifically for helping expats, or who knew um, who could who knew the struggles of being an expat in Paris. So I decided to be that person for other people. So yeah.
And talk about some of the things you offer clients. Like, do you help them find a way here? Do you help them connect? Like, what are some of the things that you help expats do in France?
Yeah, so I started my company. It's still in the fairly early stages. I started it in March this year, and I've been working primarily with clients who have been here in Paris, quite well established in Paris, and still kind of struggling with the decision making aspects. I would say that's something that crops up quite a lot in terms of whether it's the right time to stay or to leave, to go back home or to go elsewhere. And that can be something that's really debilitating, that can really weigh down on someone's mind, because it crops up um, pretty much every day. So that's a major challenge that I find that a lot of expats have. Um, and also something else that's cropped up a few times is this fear of not wanting to step outside of the CDI, the kind of like corporate world, and they have all these ambitions to do their own entrepreneurial job, and at the same time there's all these fears because of being an expat that's holding them back, even though if you look deep into it, like the rationale that they have doesn't really stand up, but the fears are still there just because we feel much more vulnerable being in another country, and not very as confident as we would be with the language. So yeah, so there's quite a range of things that crop up, yeah, in terms of the client questions.
Yeah, and how do you walk people through whether or not to stay or not? Like, I know there's always like this joke that after 10 years you either leave or stay, like and I imagine it's even harder because the longer you're here, the more you're like, I worked so hard to be here and it took so long to do a bank account, to find a home, and how can I give that up? So how do you kind of walk people through such a big decision?
Mm, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's a difficult decision, but I think when people feel like it's time to address that and do coaching, they're invested. Like they're really wanting to get to the bottom of this. So and yeah, like what you were saying, like the sunk cost fallacy, that you spent so much time investing, building a friendship group, because that can take years to build like a real friendship and find your own tribe here, um, with the bank accounts, with the language and all that stuff, all that time and effort and money gone into things. You don't want to give it up. You're kind of really emotionally invested. So in terms of making a decision, it's really to look at aspects, the different aspects of your life that are important to you, and which are the priorities. And in those priorities, which ones are kind of lacking. You can kind of almost calculate it. So I would do this as a first stage, is like you would take 8 aspects of your life, rank it from 1 to 10 in terms of priorities and where you are in the priorities and how a good outcome would look um, for each priority. And then if you can kind of build strategies to develop and to make sure that your needs are fulfilled in each of those priorities, how do you feel after that? And if you feel better, then that could be that it's not a question of leaving Paris or not. It's just that your life was kind of like out of balance, like your work, um, what to call work life balance is kind of off kilter, and so we would look at that. So really kind of break it down in terms of like the priorities, and then if that's still not the case, then really dig into what it was that brought you here. What are the fears that are holding you back, and really like go through each thing and break it down a lot further to get to the core of the problem, the core of the question. Because a lot of time, actually, we like to use the question of stay or go as a distraction for something deeper. So it's really interesting and very confusing. So this is why I do like to help people with this question, because I think it's quite difficult to deal with this by yourself.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like people might think, oh, it's Paris, but like you said, it could be other things. It can be relationships, it can be your job, it can be a sick relative back home. So
Yeah,
it's like a lot of things that go deep into our psyche that, you don't really know until you're in a foreign place and trying
yeah,
to figure everything out away from your close friends and family.
for sure.
And what's something you wish more people knew about moving to France before they moved here?
Um, I would say now that, with Emily in Paris and everything, um, it's not Emily in Paris. I would say that people who are considering moving to Paris to just also accept and realize that it is life here with the goods and the bads, the pros and the cons, and that it can take a long time to become accustomed to the culture, to really get a good handle of the language as well. Because when we don't feel super confident in speaking French, that can really make us, uh, that can really give us some difficulties in terms of feeling like we belong here. So I would also suggest not coming to France without at least starting to learn French. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to speak fluently or anything, because there are so many expat organizations and events happening in Paris. So you can still have a very fulfilling social life. But in terms of feeling settled and integrated into French and Parisian society in particular, having a good, at least, foundation of French and that willingness to develop it is essential.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Like you have to try a little bit. I think that's huge. And I know a lot of people in Paris do speak English, but it's also, it's the native language, so it's good to learn and also you'll be more likely to feel like you belong too. So I think that's great
Mm.
advice. And in your opinion, do you think it's better to move to Paris part-time or full-time? I mean, you've worked with so many people, I'm sure, that are like, maybe it's just better to come and go than to be here all the time.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Actually, I haven't worked with anyone who is part-time in Paris. I've only been working with people who are like very fully established here and have been here for years. Um, so I, yeah, that is an interesting question. I would say being part-time, as in if you're here in Paris for like 6 months and then you go back home for 6 months, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, because a lot of people I know, especially in my job as a photographer, people are like, oh, you're living my dream and I want to live here. And I'm like, actually, it's probably more fun just to come and go. Like you might
Mm.
enjoy it more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of get the best of both worlds. If you're not here if you're not here all the time, then you kind of make the most of it when you arrive, I guess, when you're here and then you're like, going out and taking all this amazing French wine and amazing restaurants and catching up with your friends who are based here. Um, so yeah, but I hadn't really like thought that much about that question because that haven't come across that yet. But who knows? Maybe I'll have some clients in that situation going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something for people to think about, especially if they're like struggling with the idea of moving abroad. It's like you don't have to go all in. You can go like part-time in and see how much you like
Yeah.
it. And what are some helpful resources for people who want to move to France? Are there any organizations you recommend or places you recommend for people who are considering moving here but aren't sure or are moving here and they want to know how to connect with people?
Yeah. Well, there's the Internations, which is a massive international global community for expats, which is just great. And something that I'm realizing as well is the common problems that expats have in Paris are actually problems that expats have globally. So that's a great network to, just talk about the challenges that you're having and have somebody understand you. We all need somebody to hear us and so we feel understood and connected to others. So that's super important. And in terms of France and Paris, there are so many Facebook groups out there for Paris in particular, and then even more in France in general. So make sure that you connect to these Facebook groups because there's just there's so much, so many events going on, after work events, stuff at the weekends. So when you first arrive as an expat, feeling lonely is something that a lot of people have, and having that kind of lack of independence because you're in a new place and it's so unfamiliar and you don't feel confident with the language or whatever. So making sure that you've got that kind of a network already, even if it's kind of more surface level relationships or whatever, it doesn't really matter because it's just to ensure that you have you've got your own kind of people, and you can go out and you can feel independent, and you can share the problems that you're having, and yeah, just speaking about it really.
Yeah, I think you just need to vent. Like
Yeah,
everybody wants to vent and talk about things. And me and my friends used to joke about sharing our non-problems, because you can only complain to other people living here about living in Paris. If you
exactly,
complain to people
exactly.
back home, they think you're just crazy.
Yeah, totally. And
It's
then you feel kind of
non-problems.
sorry, and then you feel kind of like guilty about it as well because you're like, wait, I'm living in Paris and it's, it's not all like sunshine and flowers and rainbows. It's, there's some other kind of like more negative aspects to it, or things that you don't love or you find in a challenge. And then you feel like you don't really have that space to express that because there's kind of like expat guilt that we should be living it, we should be really enjoying it. Um, and something that I found in Paris is actually a lot of people feel like this, especially, it kind of comes in waves at the beginning and then throughout the duration of your life, sometimes it comes back. And I think it's really important to verbalize that. And because a lot of expats don't do that because you feel that kind of guilt. Um, So yeah, I would encourage people to talk about it. Obviously, like find um, in a more productive way, like finding kind of solutions and sharing ideas with other people, rather than just like wallowing, because I think that can aggravate and continue turn something that's negative into kind of suffering, which is not good. But it's good to share kind of commonalities and find solutions together.
Definitely. I think that was one of my main goals when I first moved to France was like make friends. I called it like dating for friends, where you just ask everyone out to coffee and like see who you connect with. And even now I'm like, how long are you staying? Because it's hard to commit to people who are going to
Yeah.
leave in like 2 years, You really feel kind of sad to give them all your energy and then they're
Mhm.
gone. There's so many short-term contracts here.
Yeah, yeah. That's I actually wrote a blog about that aspect of living in a big international city is that you make friends with a lot of people who are here for not that long. And when you have such good relationships, good friendships with people, and then you see them go, it can be very painful. So I think in that situation is to recognize and kind of accept that reality that living in a huge international hub like Paris, we're going to come across people who are going to be leaving, um, which doesn't make it any easier to like to deal with, but that's the reality. And to have gratitude for the friendships, and have proper, when that person leaves town, have a real kind of goodbye, to kind of really end the time that you spent with that friend in a shared city together, and kind of like to acknowledge that time. And I think that's really important to have. um so yeah.
Yeah, you can have that closure.
Exactly. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and what's the best advice you've ever been given when it comes to your business, once in general in life? What's some of the best advice you've been given?
Oh, advice in life. Oh my gosh, I've been given so much good advice now. I'm just like trying to think of something in a nutshell. Um, Someone said to me, and it's so simple, but I love it. Um, Everything is flexible. Everything's flexible. You always have choice. Because a lot of the time we get very hung up on an idea of how something should be. Like I envisage my life, for example, living in Paris forever, and maybe that's not the way it's going to turn out. Or I envisage having this relationship forever. I envisage being friends with these people forever, and then they've left town. And just kind of accepting that that's not always the way it will be, and we can be flexible. We can like bend with the flows, ebbs and flows of life, and kind of helps us to be more gracious in kind of having gratitude for it, and also just letting, kind of releasing it and knowing that there's a season there's a season in our life. Like our life is made up of chapters, and it's not, I have this in my life right now and it's going to be like this forever. That's not that's not how it works for most people.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice that everything is flexible because, like you said, like we just have to accept that because when we get really stuck on the idea that, whatever's going to happen is forever, then you set yourself up for letdowns and negativity because you're like, we're just so sure of whatever it was. So I think that's really good advice. And how would you define creativity in your own words?
Oh, um, creativity. I look at creativity as like a reflection of your authenticity. Um, I think a lot of people kind of see creativity as, they kind of put it in a box of like artistic way, artistic, uh, like doing something with your hands or something like that. But I think creativity can also, occur in any aspect of life. Like even building a business is like creativity involved in that. And just for me, I think creativity is like really about authenticity. Is kind of showing um, a more vulnerable on real side to yourself, and allowing that to just kind of come out and to just like, yeah, to just present itself to other people.
Yeah, I like that, being vulnerable, and it's not just about painting or writing. Like you can be creative in many ways. And like you said, a lot of people like to put it in that box. And what advice do you have for people who do want to move to France full time? Is there anywhere they should start? Like how do they figure out what visa they need or fun things like that? Like where do they start if they're considering making the big move here?
Hmm. In terms of the visas, lots of um, there are lots of people who work specifically to help expats with visas. And depending on what country, if you're coming from the States, if you're coming from the UK, because I know things have changed now since Brexit, there are coaches who deal specifically with the visas. I would also obviously direct people to look at the French website. They have it in English as well in terms of the requirements, visa requirements. And yeah, so dealing with that kind of admin side of things, there's so many resources out there on the internet, and so many people who are specifically working in helping people in that field in particular, because I know it is very complex. There's different visa types and stuff like that. And so that's the admin side. And then for other people moving to France is really to research and start developing connections. So like I mentioned before about Facebook groups and things like that, to start to build a sense of integration, even before having moved here, just to help ease that transition.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And what future projects are you excited to share? Do you have anything coming up or something you want to share with our listeners?
So I am very soon launching a new package, a new coaching program. So this will be a 12-week program, and it's really designed to give expat clarity. So this is around helping expats make decisions and helping expats feel settled, mainly feeling settled in your mind, because as we know, sometimes we think that we have to be settled in a certain place, but actually it's just about being settled in yourself. So that's the package is really aimed about expat clarity, helping them feel good here. That's the main objective. So that should be coming out in December. And yeah, so I'll be posting on that on my Instagram page. So yeah, stay tuned if that's something that interests you.
Wonderful. And where can people connect with you online and learn more about your work and your services?
Yeah, so on my Instagram page, as I mentioned, so that's the Anna Roberts Coach. And I've also created a Facebook group called the Expat Hangout, which is designed really just to allow other expats, international expats as well as expats in Paris, to share experiences and connect with others. And I also give some free resources on there. So if anyone is wanting to reach out, then just send me a DM, and I'll be in touch. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And I can't wait to see what you'll do next. We'll share all that information in the show notes. So just check out the show notes, guys, and you can connect with Anna yourself.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.